Well, let's get in here. It's great to meet you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
So let's begin our journey with this. I always start with this question. It's 6 years ago, COVID was grabbing and changing everything in our world. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you work and live today?
Wow. So we have a in-person business, or at least in 2020 we did. And at one point, I thought we could lose over $500,000 in business because of COVID. Now, somehow, miraculously, we recovered it all. We pivoted to Zoom seamlessly with a lot of help from our back office. And we actually, I almost feel guilty about this. We actually grew our business.
Yeah.
So 2020 was a strong year. 21, 2, 3, 4, I think through 5 were record years because we were actually able to expand our reach. The other thing, we offered a lot of free programs,
Mhm.
and it was really a time to slow down to go faster. There were many things we couldn't do, but it was a reminder, a wake-up call to focus on what you can do. And actually, that's where I got the most of my book writing done was during that window.
For sure. No, and I hear that a lot. It gave everybody a little time to kind of exhale because we move so fast. So let's get into all of the myriad of things that you do on a daily basis. I want to boil it down to exactly what your day job is. I'm going to put you in front of 13-year-olds. You're at career day, and one of the kids just wants to know what you do for a living. How do you answer them?
Help people step further into their potential by recognizing the blocks that they have learned that get in the way of them being who they were born to be. I help remove roadblocks and I help people run experiments and create momentum and shift perspectives so that they can stay in action and make the contributions that they were intended to make.
So you're a medic for the business world, pretty much. You're unblocking those things. And I'm curious, what is one of the top things that blocks humans after all of this time? We work, we run, we do all these things that we're supposed to do. What have you seen that's the one thing?
I think regardless of how confident people come across, the one limiting belief that I think is shared by many is them not thinking that they're enough. And so they already start from a place of lack and a place of scarcity. In fact, I think sometimes the uh, really fast pace that many people can't sustain is because they don't see themselves as enough. And so they do another thing. If they accomplish another goal, then they may start to see that more clearly. But if you start from the fundamental belief that you are enough, I think it changes the game totally.
And obviously you feel that way. What was your eureka moment? How did you get to that point where you knew you were enough and you were going to help people get there?
I think I'm a work in process. I think sometimes I still question that. I think there is the imposter syndrome. Look, I'm in a space where I do executive coaching, leadership development coaching. Many of the people I compete with or have over the years have PhDs. As I say, I barely got out of college. And so I think it creeps up, but recognizing that we all, have certain gifts. I think Jim Collins calls it encodings, and to just tap into those gifts and trust the process. I think a good eureka moment was when I stopped being attached to the outcome and just kind of let it flow. Even the writing and publishing of a book, get overly attached to the outcome. Will it be good enough? Who's gonna? And when I just let that go, all of a sudden everything starts to flow. So I think I've had a number of eureka moments over my career,
Yeah.
and I hope I'll have a couple more
Yeah.
where I will recognize that I'm seeing things a little narrowly. And there's a lot more there's actually a lot more in here that I can bring to whatever is unfolding in front of me.
So when you were that age, 12, 13 years old at career day, what was your dream job? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Player, Major League Baseball, no question about it. I was a Mickey Mantle fan. I was very good in baseball early. Unfortunately, I peaked at about 14 years old. But there was no question in my mind that I was going to be a professional baseball player at that age.
Yeah. Well, let's find out how we got here. Take me back to your childhood. What were those foundational seeds that were planted into you that have allowed you to help people get to their true potential?
I had a, loving and supportive family, grew up middle class in North Syracuse, New York. And I think the key was, my parents modeled good work ethic, responsibility. And this idea, I think my highest value is contribution. We have these gifts. And so early on, I was a little bit of what we call the consummate underachiever. And actually, I've come back to this a little bit. Law of least effort. I was a leading edge time management guy at 12 and 13 because I only focused on the things that lit me up and were of interest to me. Now, I had a few bumps along the road because my parents weren't happy with some of my performances and some of my courses in school. But strong work ethic. I worked in a grocery store. I think I learned more about business growing up in a locally owned grocery store, and where you develop your emotional intelligence. You're interacting with people. I remember the first time I had an older guy tell me he wanted me to pack the grocery bag wrong. And my boss is watching me, and he's seeing my ears get a little red, and he calls me over. He called me Simone. He says, "Hey, Simone," he goes, "you don't believe the customer is always right, do you?" I said, "Not this guy." He goes, "No, but you know what your job is?" And I'm 16 years old, and I am clueless about what I should answer. He said, "Well, I'll tell you, your job is to help him become right." And that was a huge lesson,
Yeah.
right? Meeting people where they're at to take them where they could be. And so I, went on to college. My father never quite finished his 4-year degree. He was like 5 hours short of a double E, electrical engineering. So higher, education, college was important. Was an RA in college, played baseball in college. But really, the RA experience really shaped me into how I could connect with a broader swath of people and contribute to their life experiences. And although I tell my kids my first 7 or 8 years of business were a little miscellaneous, I wasn't clear in what I wanted to do. I had an accounting degree, went to Carrier Air Conditioning for a few years. But my true calling, I really started to find myself and my gifts when I got involved in the total quality management process, getting employees engaged at the grassroots level, and bringing labor and management together. That was really exciting. That was fun, and that was probably what got me into the work of consulting and coaching, and really helping people recognize and take action on their gifts. I think too many people overthink stuff,
Yeah.
and so they stay stuck. John Wooden wrote a book, the legendary UCLA coach, Be Quick, but Don't Hurry. And I think we need to be quick to get into action, but we need to run the experiments long enough to allow them to come to fruition.
Yeah.
We don't lose. We either win or learn, and all moments are learning moments. And I think that's one of the lessons I hope I imparted on my kids. The worst thing that can happen is you're going to learn something. That's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting you talk about labor and management. I think about Major League Baseball. I would love to be in the room one time when they're in the heat of those negotiations because we're getting ready to go into this next year, and it could be, they're saying the whole year is going to be gone.
I was just watching the interview with is it Glavin?
Yeah.
And so, because he was the player's rep and the
Uh-huh.
interview he took, and like many things, Joe, it's more nuanced, it's a lot more complex. The money distorts things, the big money for some players, but there's some work to be done. That would be fascinating
Yeah.
to, and we have to
hmm
keep in mind, right? Interests, right? What's the both and? How do we get the output for all parties? It's
Yeah.
possible.
Oh, yeah.
It starts with the belief, and then you got to hang in there and you got to do the work.
Yeah. That's for sure. So when I was 16, my first job was at a grocery store. So when you talked about that, it was Little United Super in Liberty, Missouri. And just like you said, I learned so many things about a myriad of business things that have transpired in my life because I was in that small town store. There's so many things.
You can have, I worked directly for the owner. I was one of the few guys that could keep up with his son, who was a really hard worker, because his name was on the business. But I probably learned more about business.
Yeah,
And I worked there 7 years. So I worked there through high school. I worked there through college. And his son was an athlete, so he'd give me time off for my games in the summer. And I actually came back when I had my first real job after college and helped him set up a new store that he had built.
yeah,
I learned a lot, right? Because you're interacting with different people. You gotta know dollars and cents. Ordered stuff. I remember the one lesson which you can probably resonate with. He'd say, "Simone, what do you do when there's a big line at the register?" I said, "Open up another one." He goes, "Yes, because we don't want people inconvenienced who are spending money with us.
yeah,
We don't
for
want to
sure.
hold them up."
Uh-huh, absolutely. No, I get it. So who's been your hero? Who's been your inspirational force throughout your life?
Yeah, I have a few, it goes generational. I'll look up the generation of my father, who recently passed 3 years ago. Just a solid guy. He was a spiritual man. He was a family man, hardworking and kind, and contributed. And then my son, who is just the smart, probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. But the compassion he holds for his fellow travelers, and I'd probably be remiss if I didn't include my wife, who was a transition figure in her family, who is way stronger, way more talented, than I will ever be. Just a courageous, brave person who has overcome quite a bit of adversity. So I think it's closer to home,
Yeah.
but I see where I still have opportunities to be better by having had the privilege of interacting with those three.
So when we look at the world of business, there's all these biographies and there's all these examples of people from Steve Jobs to different industries that have created a product people come back to. They have a great environment, the employees are happy, everything's strong. If you could meet one of those figures right now that's out there doing business, who would you love to meet that you admire that does it right from the top down?
Well, that's a great question. I think I got a longer list of people I don't want to meet, which is not what you asked, but yeah, no, nobody's coming to mind. If I think of people who have passed, I would think of Walt Disney. I would think of Steve Jobs. I would think about people who actually had this great vision. I'm not remembering the name of the guy who had the company in the Midwest. He wrote the book Everyone Counts, Everyone Matters, and the way he treated people. So I think this idea of anybody that's been able to get profit over time and really treat their people well.
Yeah.
Those are the people that I would love to sit down with, because I think that both are possible. It's not profitability at the expense of people. It's not treating people well at the expense of the organization. And in fact, in my book, Slow Down to Go Faster, I explain to people it's not slow down to go slower, but it's really balancing this relating and achieving. So when we treat people well, we can achieve great things.
It seems like Warren Buffett did that. He's been pretty consistent.
I think Buffett would be and there's probably, I mean, just actuarial tables, I need to get him a little quicker, but I think he's certainly been a great role model with that. That's a
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. So let me ask you this. When did you know that your role right now of advising people to get to a better place, to get through all of those blocks, when did you realize, did you have a client? What was the moment that you knew this was your destiny to do this?
I think I knew it in two different times, but The first time was I probably wasn't aware of it until looking back when I was an RA, when I was a resident assistant in college. And so you've got the, co-ed dorm, you've got a lot of kids, some are on dorm pro, some are a little more serious about college than others. And you become a sounding board, a resource, someone that can guide people through some of the challenges. Then the job at Carrier Air Conditioning, when I led the first joint labor management steering committee, and I'm leading a team of business leaders and then union leaders. And I had a knack for being able to establish rapport with people from all walks of life. I probably learned it in the grocery store. Maybe I learned it playing baseball. I also, Joe, never left the town I was born in. I currently live 3 miles from the house I was born in. And that helped me, right? I would run into people that I played baseball with or against. I would run into people. I'd go on a plant tour and I remember a vice president of manufacturing saying, "You know more people in the plant than I do, and this is your first day here." So that there was, I made a connection with people, but I think those were the two times as an RA, and then when I was first exposure to working with a joint labor management steering committee. Um, I could see things in people, and I seemed to be able to establish trust quick enough that I could get them to open up.
Yeah. What about energy? What is it every day for you to do this job at a high level, to impact lives, to take care of your soul? What is that for you?
So it is actually re-energizing, but I have a little equation. So I start my day very slow. I get up early and I spend the first 2 hours meditating, reading inspirational passages, and then reading whatever book I'm in. I don't even take a glance at my phone until 2 hours in. So I have a very rich morning practice. I've stayed active physically. So I'm really paying attention to renewing my energy. But I do 3, 5, 6, 8. Three essential things I get to do today. I get the privilege of doing. This is one of them today. That energizes me. I look forward to it. No more than 5 unique events, professionally or personally. So I have space in my calendar. 6 weeks out of the business a year. Not all vacation, but so that I can bring a new perspective. And one of the things I've been struggling with the last 2 weeks is 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
So I have a pretty good discipline to processes, but when you see the light bulb go on with somebody you're across the table from, that really is very re-energizing. And it's not that you did what you really did is held the space for them to discover what's getting in the way of their light being brighter and ask maybe a few good questions. But when you see that happen,
Yeah.
that gets you coming back. I'm not the youngest guy you'll probably speak with. I'll be 70 years old next year. But I don't feel that old.
Yeah.
Maybe that's old. Because I think the nature of the work and how I've chosen to go about the work.
So what does the big word retirement mean for you? Is that anything that what do you think of when you think about that?
I think it's an old, dated concept,
Yeah.
actually, because I think, I think it made sense for people when we didn't live as long because you wanted to have an opportunity to do the things you were missing out on. I did things along the way. When I take that, yeah, I've taken 6 weeks out of my calendar since 1991. I've traveled around the world. Our kids have seen most of Europe. So I've done things along the way. I think I might change how much I do, but as far as officially retiring, that's not in the mix yet. In fact, my role is changing, but it is not being eliminated. It's not going away.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you and you walk into the room. There's a film projector and you click play and a 60-second highlight reel of your life comes up. Will that young version of you believe your life turned out this way?
No, no. The places I've traveled to, the people I've met, the opportunities I've had, the money I've made, humbling. And I would not have, I had not envisioned it at 18 years old, quite frankly. And I think that's also a lesson for me that I think I was probably thinking a little too small. And I also, I do think that with many of the clients, because they're afraid of failing, that they don't, it's not that they don't shoot high enough, right? Too high. They don't shoot high enough. I think many of us are thinking too small. There's such a big impact we all could make. So I wouldn't have believed it because I don't think I think I had a much narrow worldview back then.
So let me ask you this. In that highlight reel, what is the highlight? What are you the proudest, the happiest about?
Being a good father,
Yeah.
a good husband, and a really solid community leader. So I've been involved on many, mostly nonprofit boards, usually connected to children that have challenges. In fact, this afternoon, we'll make a big pitch with a local organization for a big gift over the next 5 years. I think those things, my kids, they're good kids. Whether they're the most successful or not, but they are really good kids. My son was fortunate enough to give the commencement speech when he graduated from high school. I guess it's 8 years ago now, and it was well written, well delivered because he's a pretty smart kid. But he got a standing ovation, 5 minutes, not because of the speech as much of the person he was in interacting with all of his classmates, teammates, teachers. That's what I'm proud of.
Yeah.
As the people that I have had the opportunity to shape, I think I've made a positive contribution to them.
Absolutely. So let's get to brass tacks here. Everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Still somebody that's still trying to figure out who I am and to believe that I have done all that I've done and am capable of much more. I think there's a little bit, I said this earlier, I got a good image. I project well, but I protect that a little bit. And so I'd like the inner image to be equal to the outer image. And I'm getting closer every day. I have a coach, right? I mean, I think anybody that coaches ought to have a coach because we're all in the process of becoming. We all have things from our lived experiences that get in our way, and it's okay to ask for help. I came to that late, though. I think I would have come to that a little earlier because that, in my mind, years ago, that was a sign of weakness, needing help, and I've learned that it's actually probably the biggest sign of strength.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you could get into a time machine and go back into the annals of baseball or Yankee history and be in the stands for one game, where are you going to go?
I'm going to go back to watch the Yankees, and I'm going to watch the overlap. I think when DiMaggio and Mantle would have been playing together. There's a story about DiMaggio that I think my uncle told me. He was a minor league baseball player. DiMaggio was interviewed, and they said asked him why he played so hard day in and day out. He said because every game I play, it could be the first game some young man or some young woman is watching me play, and I owe that to them. I think that's the kind of commitment. I think we've lost some of that in sports today.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but I mean, we look at Cal Ripken, might be another time. These guys that were great, they were great because of their love and commitment to their craft. And quite frankly, that's part of the work I do, finding people, helping people find the craft that they love and they're committed to, and to just contribute as best you can and detach from the outcome. And you will surprise yourself. So I think I'd go back to those days.
Yeah, it's interesting. I even think about Tom Brady. He was the second to last pick in his class. Wasn't destined to do anything that he did, and he completely did it, And there's examples of that where they literally embrace and that imposter syndrome does they feel like they're the best,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
It's no, Brady is a great story, right? I
Yeah.
mean, nobody would have predicted that one.
Yeah, it's amazing. So if anybody wants to get a copy of Slow Down to Go Faster, or if they want to reach out, hire you questions, any of the good business, where do they go?
So slow down to go faster. You can go to either Amazon, probably first place, or Barnes and Noble, Bookshop. Currently selling it online only. You could also get it through our website, slowdowntogofaster.com. And I am the founder and still operating partner of Emergent. And so Ralph at getemergent.com. And we do leadership development coaching and training for organizations of all types, interestingly enough, around the world, but most of it's a 50-mile radius around Syracuse, New York.
Excellent. Well, I will put all these links in the show notes. Ralph, what a joy. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out. Best of luck with everything.
Appreciate you, Joe. Thank you so much for your time. Take care.